Hello, this is William England with Cynthia Publishing with this week's publishing tip. Today, just wanted to touch briefly on permissions clearances, i.e., how to use material that the author themselves did not write. Permissions clearances and copyright permission is generally an area that's kind of confusing to authors. What can I use if I didn't write it? How do I get permission to use another person's material? Do I get in trouble if I use somebody else's material? And for good reason. It is an area where people do want to tread lightly and do the correct things, both ethically and so that they don't get sued. But happily, and luckily, it's not that confusing of an area. A lot of things can be used free of charge under what is called public domain. What is public domain? Public domain or fair use items or materials that can be basically used without needing written permission. That includes material pre-1927, for example, government material, anything from a government agency that is out in the public use, such as geologic information, information from NASA, information from government agencies, are all what we call fair use and free to use. Whether you use something that's under fair use or out in the public domain, always cite the source of the material. Document where you got it and put it in footnotes if you can. Put it on the page where you're referencing it if you can. That will generally protect you against any claims from people who might be confused of where it's from, even though it is public domain and fair use. When you're pulling material that is published and currently being used under copyright from someone else, you do obviously need to get their permission. Some publishers will require you to get reams and reams and reams of permissions and triplicate and almost signed in blood. Well, that's not accurate or really necessary. Generally approaching the source of the material, if it's a private publisher or a smaller entity, telling them how you're using it, showing them how you're using it, and if you're using up to a very small amount of the material, no problem. Generally up to 250 words, you don't even have to get permission from that individual. But if you're using larger chunks, you obviously do need to get permission from that copyright holder to use the material. Sometimes there's a fee, sometimes there's not. The publisher you are working with should be able to help you with that. If you're working with a bigger publisher, a nationwide company, international company, they usually have a permissions department, which will have individuals that they pay just to help clear permissions and copyrights. And it's usually a longer process, but it can be done. Same way, approach them with a letter explaining how, one email usually, on how you're going to use material, where it's going to be used, and in what format. Most places will have web pages where you can submit this online, and they'll generally get back to you within 2 to 3 weeks. So bottom line is anything from the government, anything pre-1927, and up to generally 250 to 500 words of any published material is generally fair use as long as you cite it. If you're using copyright material from other sources where they do own copyright, then you do have to get the permission. You do have to seek that via their permissions department. And again, that can be done online or via email. Copyright Clearance Center is a website that can help you with this as well, but your publisher should be able to help you get that information. At Cynthia Publishing, we work with our authors to make sure that they are following all copyright rules and regulations, and we provide guidance. And in the case where it's going to be a little too hard or expensive to get the material to use in their work, then we provide alternative channels for that. So that's this week's tip. If you have any publishing ideas, feel free to pass them on to us at cynthiapublishing.com/idea. And thank you, and have a great week.